What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Shea Bridge Show here live, actually, during an almost end of a Mets game. Win or lose, who cares at this point, right? Nothing exciting, just more depressing Mets baseball over the next couple of months and during the summer. Lord, oh my God, Ken is back. YouTube finally let you back, Ken. Oh my God, can't believe it. I don't know. Ken got officially blocked by YouTube. So, thank you guys for tuning in to another show. And yes, it's been a little bit of a hiatus. Hayden was going through his baseball tour. He'll talk about that, I'm assuming, during his rant. And of course, I want to know how it was and what did he think about the other ballparks and everything like that. So, everybody, guys, what is up? Don't forget to please hit on that like button. And don't forget, guys, to subscribe to both channels if you haven't as of yet. So, the Mets are in the ninth inning. 1-1 ball game. Of course, the Mets had a 1-0 lead because they can't score to save their life. And, of course, the Mets find a way to blow another lead. And we are back in no man's land, which is, irrelevant baseball yet again in the middle of the summer. Hey, Vogelback got a base hit. Give him a trophy.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Here we go. The New York Mets are at the moment of 42-50. The game is ongoing. The Mets lost the first two games, and we'll get into the series a little bit later before we go on our very, very famous Mets rants. They lost 6-0 in game one, 5-1 in game two, and trying to actually salvage a game during this series. So we are going to turn it over to our man Hayden, who been on his baseball tour. What was it? 8 games, 4 stadiums. That was it, right? 8 games in 4 stadiums. So, Hayden, let me know how that went and go on your rant about this fucking team.
Yeah. So, am I echoing?
Yeah. There you go.
All right, I don't know. So no tabs open on my end. All right, apologies about that. But yeah, what's going on, everyone? Hopefully, everyone is doing extremely well. Besides baseball, I am doing pretty well. That is. In case you guys haven't noticed, I did like 3 live streams over the past couple weeks, and I had like a weird background. I was currently out of state. I wasn't in my awesome room. I was up in Michigan with one of my buddies, fellow YouTuber, and we did a little baseball extravaganza. We went to 8 baseball games at 4 different stadiums. We went to 3 games at the Detroit Tigers, 2 games at the Chicago Cubs, 1 at the Chicago White Sox, and 2 at the Toronto Blue Jays. So, yeah, like I said, that's 8 games, 4 stadiums. I'll tell you, it's really cool. Obviously, none of these were Met games. They were all of opposing teams, which is nice. It's like going to baseball games and not having to focus on your team. It's a little bit more relaxed. Really, really fun time. Really enjoyed it. A lot of good food options, a lot of good drinks. Obviously, Rob saw a couple pictures on, my Instagram and a couple of group chats that we're in. So yeah, it was pretty good. Not to have to worry about a boring Mets team or kind of just stress aside. It was nice to relax. I had a really fun time with that. Kind of looked at the Mets periodically, but wasn't really paying too much attention because, what is it really worth at this rate? But yeah, that was pretty fun. But like I said, I got back yesterday. So back to the regular routine. So obviously Sundays, the Shea Bridge podcast. Obviously Monday will be the Roundtable podcast. And then, of course, my regular Mets Talk live streams will be going on. But yeah, with that said, hopefully everyone is doing well. Mets are boring. crap, inconsistent. I think 3 terms to describe this New York Mets team is inconsistent, lifeless, and just lack of accountability. I mean, this team is unwatchable. Yeah, I mean, if I were to show someone highlights, maybe last night's game or game 1 of the Dodgers series or game 3 of the Phillies series, and tell them, how much money do you think this team invests? I don't think anyone would expect them to be the highest payroll in baseball. I don't think anyone would be expecting this team to have great expectations. Yeah, I am utterly tired of the same shit. Honestly, at this rate, I'm just going to record myself and play it back, play it black, pay it black, pay it back. Because I sound like a broken record coming on here every Sunday, every Monday, and every other series. And Marte struck out. Wow, shock of the century right there. Just call him out. Let the Dodgers win. I really don't care at this rate. This is a joke of a franchise. When they're a definition of inconsistent. When they pitch, they don't hit. When they hit, they don't pitch. And that's been the moral of the story for probably since May. Don't get me wrong. I think a big part of the season's failures is because of the pitching. I think that is majority of the reason you're in the situation you are now is because of your starters, is because of your bullpen. Do I think the offense is to blame a little bit? Sure. I don't think this is an offense that is performing well. Everyone is underperforming in this lineup, maybe with the exclusion of on this team, probably Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Alvarez, and Kodai Senga. But the offense isn't the reason what your record is right now. This is a team, like I said, that has relied on good pitching and an offense that can only do so much. And extra innings, big surprise there. But with that said, it's tiring. I am tired of saying the same exact things and letting this team run through the motions, putting Marte out there to strike out, 3 balls in the dirt, 0 for 3, 3 strikeouts. There's only 3 players on this team right now who are playing expectations to above average, and that is Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Alvarez, and Kodai Senga. Everyone else can get sent to the moon at this rate. Yeah, inconsistent at its finest. And now, obviously, the season's been over since May 3rd, since we got swept in Detroit, and then it's kind of just lingered on since. Now the Mets are developing new issues, and this is becoming more of a mental thing. Mental is now becoming into this.
Big
a lot of sloppy and defensive mishaps on the field. And like Rob and I have said in the past, these aren't performance-based. These aren't physical-based. These are mental-based. Everyone on this team is average to above average defensively. I mean, it's not like you have a Kyle Schwarber or JD Martinez or any other defensive liabilities. That's not the case. I would say everyone is average to just about to above average. And yeah, the sloppiness, the walks, the hit by pitches need to stop. I mean, you look at last year's first half 2022 Philadelphia Phillies as they just walked it off just now. The Philadelphia Phillies last year in the first half of 2022, horrible baseball team. Sloppy, fundamentally horrible. The Mets 2023 team trumps that tremendously. Tremendously. Oh, and we saw because, Philly's got a taste of our own medicine. It's a fucking joke how bad this team looks on the field. And they don't care. I really don't think they care. Because I don't see anyone show emotion. They strike out. Marte strikes out, reaching for a strike 3 in the dirt, and he goes, walks back to his dugout. I mean, the only guy that I think I've seen show emotion is McNeil, and that's because he's a hothead. I don't know, whatever. No emotion from this team. And I think it starts, obviously, Buck Showalter, we spoke about him a lot, but it starts with the defensive mishaps. And it's very hard when your manager and the managerial staff defend those guys. When Buck Showalter comes on TV and the post-game show and says, oh, well, that was a hard play. Oh, if Marte couldn't catch it, that fucking bullshit. These are major leaguers, not middle schoolers, not high schoolers. They should be able to catch these balls 10 out of 10 times. When there's a lack of communication and a basic fly ball, a basic routine double play, yeah, they should be able to turn that. This team gets runners on first and third, bases loaded, no outs, and they pop fly to the catcher, ground out to a double play. Like, they can't score a run to save their life. They can't get out of a jam. They are unclutch. You had what, the 5 days or 6-game win streak. Congratulations. I mean, that was the most we've seen all season besides the 5-game win streak in May. Boring, unproductive, unclutch baseball. And I'm tired of saying the same things because everything I said, oh yeah, I said this 2 weeks ago, and then a week ago, it's done. It's boring. And it comes to the point, I'm sitting here on July 16th, and I'm thinking to myself, should the Buffalo Bills go after Dalvin Cook? Is Josh Allen doing this? Because that football's in my mind already. And I see everyone on Twitter, football's in my mind. I mean, Steve Cohen's going to do, he's going to help out the Jets, Giants, and Bills surely a lot. There is no, like I said, the defensive mishaps and the sloppiness on this team, and I know I got off task, needs to be addressed. Because Buck Showalter is going out there in his post-game shows, and he is defending those guys when he says, oh, the routine play, if Marte couldn't catch it, who couldn't? Because you know what that shows in those guys' head? Oh, well, maybe it wasn't on me after all. Buck Showalter, listen, and I give him credit. I'm glad he didn't throw him under the bus. Because I don't think any manager should be throwing their player under the bus. I'm not asking Buck to say, oh, Beatty cost us the game. I'm not asking him to say that. But Buck Showalter needs to go out there and, one, not say they're hard plays because they're not. They're routine plays. But he needs to go out there and say something around the lines of, all these guys are known guys. All these guys know what they're doing. There's sloppiness on the field. There's been defensive mishaps. Sure. And they know that. And these guys are capable of being good defenders. He needs to go around and say something like that because it's hard. No, that's bullshit. That's a bullshit response, and everybody knows that. So it starts with that. And then, there's a million other things after that. Whether it's the starting pitching, whether it's the bullpen, whether it's this offense that gets like 2 hits a game now. Alonso is dead. He should be back on the IL. I don't know why he's off the IL. Wrist fracture that takes 8 weeks to 6 weeks to heal. Got off the IL in a week. Yeah, no wonder he's been dead at the plate. McNeil, Jeff Hu, Lindor. Lindor's been all right, I guess. Besides the average OPS, home runs and RBIs are there. Canna, bad. Marte, unlikable. Vogelbach, I'd rather stand there and just take 3 strikes down the middle. Like I said, really the only 3 guys that I have, good play by Lindor. The only really 3 guys that I actually give credit to this season are Kodai Senga, Brandon Nimmo, and Francisco Alvarez. Tommy Pham, he's kind of been slowing down a little bit, and I didn't expect him to be this. Tommy Pham shouldn't be carrying your offense. I'm sorry, that's no. This team is a joke. It is frustrating. And I know, obviously, Rob and I haven't been together since Cohen's press conference. And listen, I say this as a passionate fan who loves their team. I'm thrilled that Cohen had that press conference and he took accountability. That's great. That's great and all. But at the end of the day, nothing's changed. And that would have been the best moment to spark this team. And everyone gets blamed. And like I said, I say this with love and passion of my team. Born in 2002, and I've loved this team since. I say everything with love, passion, and respect to this ball club. Everyone should be taken into accountability, and everyone should be blamed. Same reason that everyone blamed the Wilpons, and I get it. They didn't spend any money. But 4 years ago, the owner was a big part of the team, but now the owner's shouldn't be blamed. Why is that? And I've noticed it on my channel. I've noticed it on Twitter, and I'm not calling anyone out, but why is that? That's great. Steve Cohen can add all these chicken donut sandwiches at Citi Field and all these rum buckets. The rum buckets I like, sure, but he could add all this. He could add a big scoreboard, chicken sandwiches. I don't care. That stuff is secondary to me. And I'll say this, Cohen is great with the fan experience, something that the Wilpons are very inadequate with. So I'll give Cohen that. But at the end of the day, I don't care about that. That is secondary to me. What I care about is watching this ball team play well and make it to the playoffs. Not, because at this rate, what difference does it make if Citi Field has all these yummy foods and, free giveaways and that stuff, but then they're going to, win 50 games a year? Who gives a shit? The Colorado Rockies could do that. Does that make them a great team?
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not trying to come on here and go after Cohen, but it's no secret that he could have been overhyped. Sure. I came on YouTube when I first started this channel. Everyone, oh my God, the Mets are going to win a World Series in 2 years. Really? Does he play? Richest owner in baseball, sure. Unlimited funds, sure. But there's more to it than the owner. And like I said, this isn't me attacking Cohen or anything, but I'm just saying it's more than the owner. Money doesn't buy championships. There's more to it than that. And it's very frustrating. I'm tired of coming on here and repeating myself, running through the motions. This is a team that everyone is underperforming with the exclusion of 3 guys, as stated. And it's tiring. It really is. And listen, I respect Cohen for the press conference, and he said everyone could blame me, and I respect that. Wilpons, they would have never done that in 1,000 years. You kidding? They were never interviewed. So I respect that. Like I said, I'm not trying to come on here and trash Cohen or any of that stuff. But at the end of the day, if they don't win, I don't care about chicken donut sandwiches, and I don't care about fireworks, and I don't care about all these cool giveaways. I want them to win. And it is what it is with that. But playoffs are arguably done. I have no optimism in our team. If the Mets are down by a runs, well, it's the equivalency from them being down by 7 or 8.
Feels like it.
Runners in scoring position. They get guys bases loaded. You get a strikeout, double play. This is a veteran rotation. I've seen plenty of people, whether it's on YouTube, on Twitter, on Spotify, and these are some of the most optimistic people out there. Even them are, going around saying, I hate this team sucks. I don't think I see anyone. So, yeah, sorry for the rant. I know Rob wants to get a couple words in, so I'll pass the baton and the mic off to him, as we'll see if the Mets can try and win this out. But, just overall unwatchable. And I get it. They had a great 6-game win streak at the Giants and sweeping the D-backs in the first game against the Padres. That's what this team should look like. That is what this team should be. Being able to come clutch in extra innings, and Guillorme can't even get a bunt. Please DFA him. But that's what this team should be. This should be a team, what we saw last year. It isn't over till the last strike. It isn't over. Mets are making great.
Guillorme just won the game for us.
Wow. Wow. Mets won.
Yeah.
Talk to me about 500. So, yeah, Mets win, B scores. Yay.
Sorry.
Let's go. Luis Guillorme actually done something. Yeah. I'm just mad because I wanted it to be Francisco Alvarez. But with that said, this is what this team should be. This should clutch, getting, try. That's what this team should be. The expectations, that's what this team should be. But like I said, Rob, mic is yours.
Yeah, good rant, buddy. And I agree with you about the 3 players. I'll even add Robinson in there. I don't even know. Did you say Robinson?
Sure. Yeah, Robinson and Rayleigh too. Yeah, they can get it.
Listen, what did I tell you right before we came on the stream? They're going to find a way to win this game. They're going to sweep the White Sox. And then right before the deadline, they'll get swept by the Nationals in 4 games. That's what will happen. That's exactly what will happen because the Mets like to fucking tease us. And you're right on. And listen, I've been a defender of Buck. I'm one of those people that I don't think the manager is the biggest problem with this team. Look, everybody's to blame. Look, Buck had a terrible year. It's hard to defend him on that point, right? It's hard to defend him. He did a total 180 from what he did last year. He was basically telling the rules to the umpire last year. Every button Buck pushed last year worked. Every button he pushes this year is a complete disaster. And I don't know why people believed that Buck Showalter was going to get fired and it was going to be a Philadelphia Rob Thompson thing. That's not the case. You know what? Buck Showalter, as much as I know Ken can't stand Buck and think that he should be fired, and don't worry, guys, Craig Counsell is on his way. And then when Craig Counsell is your manager and everybody's going to talk about how bad Buck was in the playoffs as a manager, Craig Counsell is just as bad, by the way. Look at his moves in the playoffs with his bullpen. Yeah. All right. Well, before we talk about that, let's go on and talk about that, right? Because, Ken, we talked yesterday about Craig Counsell. I'm going to tell you right now, that would be a fucking disaster. I'm telling you guys that right now. So, when it comes to this team, everybody's to blame, right? We can't catch fly balls. I don't give a shit. I don't want to hear Beatty's a rookie or anything like that. The guy's been playing baseball since fucking Little League, okay? I've played third base my entire life through Little League, high school, through college. Catch a fly ball. That was an easy fly ball to catch. Somebody put up on Twitter to like a animated trajectory of the ball. You know how many times the ball did that? A pop up in the infield? It does it all the time. It always starts in foul territory and runs its way back to to fair territory, especially where it was. Beatty read the ball wrong. That's on him. I don't want to hear excuses from Buck after the game. Oh, it was a hard play to make. No, it's not. You're a Major League Baseball player. I don't even care if you're a quadruple A player and you're not a major leaguer, but you're not really a minor leaguer either. You're in between. You can catch that fly ball. I'm sorry. There's no excuse for that. The same reason where there's no excuse for Lindor not making that simple double play in Pittsburgh. Alonso can't throw the ball to second base to get the double play to not give up that run. And it goes on and on and on and on. This team has been an utter disaster this year. And it's been a problem the entire season. After the 21-game stretch in April, when they were 14-7, it's been a complete disaster. Everybody, you can pick a player, and I can find moments where they lost the game for the Mets. Every player on this team. And that's including Robertson, who's been probably the MVP of this team. He even blew a big game for us that we needed. Even though I'm not going to kill Robinson.
Yeah, look at the Atlanta Braves game.
Yeah, it's all of them. The Mets had lead in every one of those games, and they lost them too, right? Scherzer, and I said this to my dad. I go, watch. The Mets lost the first two games of against the Dodgers. Scherzer comes out today. There's no pressure on him. It's not a rubber game, right? Win or lose, it really doesn't matter. Of course, Scherzer's going to pitch 7 innings with no runs. Of course he was, because it wasn't, quote unquote, a big game that the Mets needed. If this Mets needed this game to win a series against the Dodgers, Scherzer would have got fucking rocked, and we all know it. Listen, Mets won today, great. They're 43-50. I didn't change it yet, but who cares? Game is not ongoing. They won, yip-de-doo, right? We all know it's over, right? And like I said, they'll sweep the White Sox. They'll either take 2 out of 3 against, I forgot who they play after the White Sox, but when they played the Nationals, the last 4 games before the deadline, I should have known that, right? It's right in front of me, and I'm going to Boston. That's how stupid I am. That's how pissed off I am, right? Unfortunately, I'm going to Boston like the asshole I am, paying all this money for tickets I bought well in advance, for plane tickets and hotels I bought well in advance. But again, I love traveling to stadiums, especially when it's away stadiums. Fenway is the park that you can go to. I don't care if the Mets are 0-162. I don't even care if it was, I'm going because it's the Mets, obviously. It's going with the 7 line, so that's always fun. I got a lot of friends that I like to hang out with, so that's always fun in Boston. And Yawkey Way is probably one of the best environments to be at. I tell you right now, they're going to play well. They're going to sweep the White Sox. They might even take 2 out of 3 against Boston, and everybody will get excited because they'll find a way to get to like 5 games from the wild card, and they'll get swept by the Nationals. I'm telling you, this is exactly what the Mets are going to do because they fucking torture us. They torture us in any way possible. They did it in 2019 when they went to 15 out of 16, and then what happened? Their September was a disaster. And then that is the whole picture. Yesterday's game, in a nutshell, was exactly the 2023 Mets. Not only did Beatty miss the pop-up, that's already terrible. But the ball had a bounce and hit him in the chin, even better. So you don't even get knocked down. You're already knocked down. You get punched in the mouth again before you even get up. that's basically the 2023 Mets. And again, I put up a poll yesterday that I said, if you had to choose one, which would you want the Mets to trade? Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander? Max Scherzer, I think it was about 75% that people said trade Max Scherzer. I tend to agree with that because I think Verlander did fall into a little hard luck. Remember, he did miss the first month. It takes some time. I think he's pitched probably better in bigger games than Max Scherzer. You know, when we needed the big start, Verlander seems to do it more times than not, except for, you know, the other day against the Dodgers. But Scherzer has just been, every big game he pitched, he's been a disaster. So, I mean, either way, and people are like, oh, like Hayden, you just said it. You think Scherzer's washed? A lot of people said it. Maybe Verlander is on the verge of being washed. People are like, oh, we got to trade him. Nobody, I'm sorry, even, I know Cohen said it's already spent money, but you're not going to trade a guy that a lot of people, a lot of Met fans consider them washed up and pay their salary and trade him and not get nothing back. Because you're not going to get a lot back unless one of these two or both of them pitch out of their minds over the next 2.5 weeks before the deadline.
Or if they value,
maybe we'll get lucky. But you got to remember, guys, if you think they're washed up, what do you think the other teams think? You think they're going to say, you know what? We got to give a top prospect because they're going to pay the salary of Scherzer, and nobody's going to take that and give you a top 10 prospect or even a top 15 prospect for Scherzer or Verlander, knowing that they could be washed up. If you believe that, then why do you think other teams are just going to be a fool and say, oh, we'll give you, you know, like a top 5 prospect or top 10 prospect? No. Like I said, you will get a top 5 prospect for David Robertson because somebody's going to be desperate enough to get Robertson. Last year, Robertson wasn't even as good as this year, not even close. And they got Ben Brown from the Phillies, which is a top 5 prospect, and he's number 3 in the Cubs system now, along with our favorite Pete Crow Armstrong, who's number 1 in the Cubs system.
Yeah,
right?
He's killing it.
Yeah, right? So that's the other thing. So Robinson will get you a top 5 prospect because there will be a desperate team out there. And again, maybe the Mets will get lucky here, and there'll be one team that missed out on a couple of starting pitchers that they were trying to get, and they'll come to the Mets and say, hey, we need Scherzer or Verlander. And they might be desperate, and it might be their only chance to add to their rotation, and you might find a desperate team. We might get lucky there. Tommy Pham could probably get you a low-level prospect, maybe even a top 20. You know, you never know. You know, Canna probably get you a low-level farmhand, which, you know, builds up your farm system a little bit. That's fine. You know, the same thing goes for Brooks Raley. You'll probably get something for him, maybe even a top 20 prospect, because bullpen arms are very valuable at this time. Who else am I thinking of? Let's see. There ain't really much left, is there? You know, I don't think they're going to trade Jeff McNeil, even though I would in a heartbeat. I've said it since 2021. This guy has an on-year, off-year, on-year, off-year, too inconsistent. He doesn't hit 300. He's barely a baseball player. He's not good enough defensively to not bat 300. He has no power. He's not a run producer. He's a guy that needs to bat 300 or better, or he doesn't help this team at all. And with everything that I just said, I still go to games. I'm still going in Boston next week or this week. I'm going to Minnesota in September when the Mets go because it's already signed, sealed, and delivered and paid for. Unless Ken wants to reimburse me, then I probably am going. So again, it's another ballpark off the list, so I can't really complain about that. You know, so I think I'm up to like 16 stadiums now. So after the year's over, so perfect, beautiful. That's always fun, right? Baseball is still my favorite sport. I love it, just like Hayden said about, you know, you love this team, you're passionate about the team. It's frustrating, right? We all want to be excited, right? This time last year, we were kind of like seeing the Braves creep up a little bit, but the Mets are playing still extremely well. And there was a lot of hope, a lot of optimism, a lot of happiness, not a lot of complaints. Even though, how's everybody liking the home runs now, right? They're 9th in baseball in home runs. You see how important average is for all the – and Hayden, I love you.
I agree.
How important average is when people who love analytics don't care about average until your team sucks. Now everybody cares about average. But then again, right? Everybody wants Kyle Schwarber, right? Well, Pete Alonso's Kyle Schwarber at this point. Shit, he's Dave Kingman at this point. He's imitating Dave Kingman. I mean, he's rolling into Joey Gallo territory. That's what he's doing right now. And again, I don't think Alonso is a 210 hitter, 240, 250 career. I think that's where he'll lie. And if he was batting 240, 250, nobody would have a problem with him right now with the home runs he has and the RBIs, right? But you can't bat 210 and not have comparisons to Dave Kingman. Or, people are calling and WFN saying he looks like Joey Gallo. He's either striking out or hitting a home run. That's basically Joey Gallo in a nutshell. Shit, that's Dave Kingman in a nutshell. Right? And, I wasn't alive for Dave Kingman, but my dad told me about him. And I know the old timers probably love that comparison because that's exactly what Alonso looks like right now. And look, we're kind of recapping the Dodgers series. There's not really much to talk about, right? I mean, they look like the 2023 Mets in the first two games. And even today, they look like the 2023 Mets. Looked like a disaster. I even told Hayden, like, they're going to win this game. They're going to find a way to win this game because they love to torture us. So let's go into the player evaluations a little bit because there's a lot. And I want to start with Brett Baty. This is going to piss people off. Maybe not because I guarantee you, because I didn't hear people killing Baty on social media enough. Because let me ask you something, guys. Baty was what? Our number 2 prospect, at one point number 1 prospect. He's batting .230 with 5 home runs and basically, 30-something RBIs. We traded Eduardo Escobar because he had those numbers, right? Because we wanted to give Baty the everyday job. There's no excuses anymore for Baty. He plays every day. He plays six out of 7 days, right? All of a sudden, he doesn't know how to hit lefties. Did you notice every fastball that is thrown to him that's 96 or higher, he can't catch up to? So he can't catch up to a fastball, can't catch pop-ups, doesn't look good in the field. So what is he? He's Eduardo Escobar, just a younger version at this point, except that he's worse than Escobar defensively. I still think Baty is still going to be a pretty good Met, but to the level that I expected him to be. Remember, I said I can see him being a 260 hitter, maybe scratching 270, 20 home runs, 80 RBIs, 85 RBIs, pretty good. But again, you got to give me more power. I talked about this a month ago when he was struggling. He's a guy that when he falls into his bad habits, he has a long swing, can't catch it to a fastball. And everybody who keeps on talking about AAA numbers, do you know how many retreads and basically fringe major leaguers are in AAA? And we're going to talk about numbers at AAA, and that goes for Ronnie Mauricio as well, right? You want to give me AA numbers? We'll have a conversation. But I don't want to hear AAA numbers about Brett Baty batting .350, and every freaking day we got a highlight from on Twitter about Baty hitting another home run. The power is not there. Either he's not a major leaguer or he's actually not ready yet. So maybe the people who want to kill Epler and kill Buck, maybe they're right about certain things. For everybody who wants Mauricio to come up just because it'll make you feel better, maybe Baty wasn't ready. And you know what? I still believe that Baty was brought up because the Mets fell to the fans' level and was reactionary instead of using their fucking brain, right? Met fans, baseball fans are always going to be irrational because they're emotional. When your team starts to act irrational and emotional, good luck trying to win anything. And for everybody who wants to trade this guy, fire that guy, remember what I said over and over again on many live streams. Stability matters in organizations, right? There's a reason why Dave Roberts, who's a terrible manager, is still a Dodger manager. Aaron Boone, who is the terrible manager as well, is still the manager. There's a reason why these teams make the playoffs every year. Stability from the top to bottom is important from the front office to the coaching staff. Just because you need a story to talk about for 2 days on WFAN and then have nothing to complain about, because I can guarantee you if Buck would have got fired in that press conference with Steve Cohen, right? and the Mets still struggled, who are you going to blame next? Because for some reason, a lot of Met fans want to blame everybody else but the fucking players on the field. I'm a player. I was a player. I would never blame my coach if I can't run something out down the first baseline when I hit a ground ball. If I can't catch a foul ball, I can't catch a pop-up, I'm not blaming my manager for not getting on me because I can't catch a fly ball. If I can't make an easy double play, I'm not blaming my manager for getting in my face or not. All right? Blame the players. And this goes back to Beatty. That goes back to saying, oh, it was a hard play if Marte couldn't catch it. Bullshit, Buck. The players need to get it done, right? I don't care if Buck goes out every freaking day and yells at the umpire, right? How are the Yankees doing? Aaron Boone gets thrown out every other game. And you think that's going to make the Mets better? How about the players play better before we complain about a manager and a GM and Steve Cohen and Barnes and this guy and Hefner? You think Hefner is a good pitching coach because the Mets pitched well last year, and now you're going to make him the scapegoat because they're not pitching well this year? How about the fucking guys are not playing well? They're not playing to the back of their baseball cards. That's it. It's not that
with Hefner, you can make one argument that a lot of pitchers who left the Mets are all of a sudden these, I'm not going to say elite, but look at guys like Seth Lugo. Look at a lot of relievers on the team.
But you know what? All of a sudden, Met fans wanted Chris Bassett back, right? They couldn't wait to get rid of him after the Padres series, right? He's okay. He's what he is. He gives you innings, right? Right. The same thing with Taijuan Walker. Is Taijuan Walker blowing everybody away? Right. He's pitching exactly the way he pitched with the Mets. Probably a little bit worse with the Phillies. So it's I get it, but it comes back to the same thing. It's like everybody, JD Martinez hit the home run. All of a sudden, Twitter lit up. Oh, if we would have had JD Martinez, if we would have had JD Martinez, we would have lost 10-9 instead of 7-6 or 7-4. Like the offense, JD Martinez, it would have helped this offense, but he doesn't pitch either. And I know you brought up before we go into more players about the payroll and everything like that. Look at the Padres, Yankees, and Mets, who are the top 3 payrolls in baseball. All 3 of them are not in the playoffs right now at this moment. So, and you know what? I hope that actually happens. I hope all 3 of those teams, because yes, it's not about buying the championship. And for everybody who wants to say, and Hayden, I know you're one of them, and I'm not calling you out, but it's basically a lot of Met fans who are talking about it, right? What was Cohen supposed to do? He had no farm system. He had no pitching in the farm system to say, you know what? I'm not going to sign Verlander. I'm going to give somebody a chance. He gave Peterson a chance and McGill a chance. How did that one work out? Because if you didn't sign Verlander, and again, everybody was like, right, who is calling for Nathan Eovaldi to be our number 2 starter? Nobody, right? Everybody brought up Kevin Gausman in a lot of messages that I got from people. Kevin Gausman chose Toronto. The Mets go back to that offseason. The Mets gave a bigger offer to Gausman. He chose the Blue Jays. That's not the Mets' fault, right? It goes back to the same thing. Again, you could spend all the money you want, but remember, the Mets had basically their entire rotation as free agents. Basically, all their bullpen was free agents. The Mets had to spend money to build a roster, no matter what, because no matter what type of farm system the Mets have right now, they had no arms to replace those bullpen arms and those rotation arms. So pitching is expensive, bullpen and rotation. You're going to spend a lot of money, no matter, even if you wanted to bring back DeGrom, Bassett, Walker, which, oh, by the way, cost us more money. Would have cost us more money if we brought those guys back than the guys we actually did. Right? Verlander, $43 million. Fine. Right? Would you rather have Kodai Senga or Chris Bassett? Because that was the comparison. Right? Right now, Kodai Senga is having actually a better year than Bassett overall. Right? And you can go about Taijuan Walker and over Quintana because Quintana hasn't pitched. But they got Quintana because every second half, Taijuan Walker fell apart. So let's not act like Taijuan Walker was going to help this team in the second half. Right? Quintana was always durable, right? You sign players based on past performances, right? Aaron Judge would have never got the contract he had if he didn't hit 62 home runs last year. Let's be honest about that, right? Everybody wants Shohei Ohtani, right? He's going to get a $500, $600 million contract. You think if he was doing the same exact thing he was this year, that he was still going to get that? Probably not. The same thing for Juan Soto. Juan Soto, everybody thought he was going to be the first $500 million player, right? He's not going to get that, guys. I'm going to tell you that right now. And again, past performances matter. That's how you sign players. Unless you're signing your own and buying out arbitration years, you sign players for past performances, right? We were going to sign Kevin Gausman for who everybody wants Gausman. Guess what? You signed him because he won a Cy Young, right? Not because of what he might do. And he hasn't been that good for Toronto anyway, right? All right, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry. But yeah, player evaluations. Like, I'm getting on Beatty because everybody wanted Beatty, and he's making everybody look stupid. Maybe he wasn't ready. For everybody who wants to kill the Mets and the front office and Billy Epler, maybe they were right about Beatty, that he shouldn't be up yet. Maybe there's still some things he has to tweak, right? You see what happened. Look how he can't catch up to a fastball. I'm sorry, but I see other guys coming up from the minors, like Ellie De La Cruz, all these other guys, and I'm not saying Beatty's on that level, but even a minor leaguer that's on Beatty's level, I don't see him struggle this badly, right? Alvarez got less playing time than Beatty did early on. Beatty has got all the playing time since Escobar has been traded, and even before that. So there's no excuse. Hayden, I'm sorry.
No, you're good, man.
But if there's a player that evaluation you want to really talk about and say, you know, whatever, good, bad, ugly, or your opinion about him, go ahead, buddy. Sorry, guys.
No. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything Rob said. I mean, obviously kind of dissecting some of it bit to bit. You know, and I think that is one thing that Cohen was kind of put in a bad spot, is when he took over this team. You know, the Mets had a good, key term, good farm system. It wasn't bad. It wasn't, you know, a top tier farm system like the Mariners or Orioles or Marlins. You know, when you look at prospects, a lot of them is, you know, a lot of prospects. And listen, I'm a prospect hugger. I love, you know, MLB, you know, prospect line. I love all that stuff. You know, a lot of it you have to take with a grain of salt. You know, there's plenty of guys who come to the MLB in their bus. But essentially, with that said, I think I forgot what I was going to say, but it was something. Obviously, you know, we look at Beatty. Beatty's, yeah, he's been having a big struggle right now. He had a, you know, earlier on this season. I mean, he raked in AAA. We knew, you know, we discussed that. I mean, how many times we talked about that in the beginning of the season? Came up, slow start, got hot for a bit, and you know, like we said, can't hit a fastball. Ground ball percentage, I mean, it's through the roofs. Can't get the ball off the ground. He needs to start lifting the ball. I mean, launch angle, is that a thing for him? Being able to pull the ball in the air, that's another thing I really want to start seeing from him. So offensively, like I said, he's young. Like I said, I'm not going to sit here and call him a bust in 2 months. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
you know, same. No, and I'm not saying anyone is, but you know, that's how
we live in the chat. That's why Dutchie's brought it up.
With prospects, I mean, whether it's Adley Rutschman, whether it's Casey Mize, whoever, you know, guys get hurt, guys get Tommy John, guys get surgeries, guys have, you know, look at Jared Kelenic. I mean, it took him 2 years, and he's actually been pretty. I mean, he hasn't been elite this year for the Mariners, but he's been terrible. He's been playable. He has like 15 home runs. Yeah, he has like 1,000 strikeouts, but minus the strikeouts, he's been an average ball player. You know, guys there's an acclimation period. You know, there are not many rookies who just come up and hit 53 home runs or 52 home runs or, you know, pitch a triple crown. No, it doesn't work like that. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Beatty's done. You know, there's things he needs to work on. Do I think, you know, listen, if Escobar was playing well and playing average and the rest of this lineup was, you know, Beatty would still be in AAA and he wouldn't be called up probably till September or next year. Same goes with Alvarez. Same would have went with Vientos. If the guys at the positions at the beginning of the season performed well and this team was winning ball games, Alvarez would be in AAA. Beatty would be in AAA. Vientos would have never even been touched out of AAA. I mean, that's just how it is. but you're taking guys who, and I will say this, are not 100% MLB ready, and you're putting them in positions because it's a rebuilding year or retooling year or whatever. I shouldn't say rebuilding.
Be careful with rebuilding. You might get thrown out of.
Not rebuilding. An experiment. I don't know why I said rebuilding. I was just thinking on my head. Experiment year. My apologies. The Mets are not rebuilding. It's an experiment year. But with that said, I don't know. And everyone needs to relax with the trading. Like, let's chill with that, because if we're going to trade everyone away, then, imagine 2021, So, yeah, I mean, right now, I don't know if you want to, like I said, everyone's underperforming this year. It's no secret. Unless your name is Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Alvarez, or Kodai Senga, and maybe Brooks Raley and David Robertson in that mix, everyone's been underperforming this year. Lindor, McNeil, Alonso, Canna, Marte, Vogelbach, everyone is. It's no secret. This has been a cruddy year. Guys have slumps. Guys were hot in the beginning of the season and are struggling now. That's how baseball works. Obviously, guys have slumps.
Yeah.
I don't know
when a lot of these guys
briefly want to touch the trade deadline. But I could discuss the trade deadline.
Yeah, go. Okay, yeah. We can start.
When it comes to the trade deadline, people need to relax. Obviously, with the team now, this team is probably not going to make the playoffs. My depiction, and quote me on this, recorded, I don't care. July 16th, they'll probably finish like a 88, 82-80. Or excuse me, 80-82. They'll probably finish a couple games under, if not a game or two over. I don't have playoff aspirations with this team.
Yeah.
Coming the deadline, I believe it's August 1st. August 1st. I think what this team, and I don't think this team will get any better then. I think what this team needs to do is they need to do exactly what the Baltimore Orioles did last trade deadline. And what the Baltimore Orioles did was,
good call.
And what the Baltimore Orioles did was, if you guys didn't know, they traded away their rentals and veterans. That's what they did. And that's what the Mets are going to do, is the Mets should trade away, and this is what the Orioles did last trade deadline, trade away the rentals and veterans that don't offer much. And then all the guys under contract, obviously, and everyone else is safe. So what does that apply for the Mets? Well, I think that could apply for Mark Canna, David Robertson, Tommy Pham. I'd like to say Starling Marte, but I don't think any team would be dumb enough to pick that offer up. He's an aging outfielder, 2 years left, including this year, so 2.5 technically, and he's hurt. So, could that be why he's underperforming? Marte had that surgery over the offseason, but that's a topic for another day. But I think that's what the Mets are going to do. I don't think they should buy. I don't think it's worth destroying the farm system anymore and going out for rentals, because the Mets love trading away prospects and then getting Baez and all these rentals in return. Crazy. But I think that's what the Mets are going to do. So to answer your question, I think this deadline, they're not going to buy, but they're not going to sell. I just think they're going to keep the guys that are going to be here for a while. So guys like Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Alvarez, Jeff McNeil, Kodai Senga, and a couple other guys if I didn't mention. They're here. They're safe. They're not going anywhere. So to quote what I said, the Mets should do what the Baltimore Orioles did last trade deadline, and that is trade away and get rid of your rentals, so guys that expire into free agency this offseason, or veterans that really don't offer much that maybe another team values. So, like I said, whether that's a guy like Mark Canna, Starling Marte, Tommy Pham, David Robertson, whatever. So that's what I think the deadline could look like. I really don't think Scherzer and Verlander are going to be going anywhere. I don't think any team is really even going to be interested in picking up that contract. But that's the deadline. I don't think there's going to be much. Not gonna lie, this year's deadline I don't think is going to be exciting for MLB. It's not like there's any big guys besides Ohtani, and I think he'll probably go in the offseason, free agency. I don't think there's anyone crazy available. All the teams like the Diamondbacks are playing decent. Teams that would be willing to trade are playing well. And I mean, what do you want from the Royals? Who do you want from the A's? Ryan Noda? Brent Rooker? I mean, there's no one. So this trade deadline is going to be bullpen. I mean, that's really all I see at this deadline for all MLB. It's going to be bullpen arms. I don't see many key bats. I don't see many key starters. I think it's going to be a lot of relievers and a lot of other pitching arms. So kind of just to put a cap and finalize my thoughts on the deadline, I don't think there's going to be much for the Mets. I don't think they're going to buy, but I don't think they're going to sell. Maybe you'll see them lose Robertson and Canna, and that's probably the most. And they'll get a couple prospects in return, and that's really going to be it. And I mean, if I was the GM, that's what I would do. And I guess just kind of, I remember what I was going to say before. When it comes to the farm system, is that the Mets have always kind of had a farm system, and not to get off topic, but just remember my thought was the Mets have always had a farm system that, like I said, wasn't great, it wasn't bad, it was mid, probably like ranked 13, 14 in MLB, something like that. But the reason it stood out was because the last 3 or 4 years we had guys, particularly 4 or 5 guys that stuck out. And that was Francisco Alvarez, Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos, Ronnie Mauricio. And then everyone else after that was kind of like, okay, not really much to talk about. Well, now a lot of those guys are up. Beatty's up and Alvarez is up. And Alvarez is doing a great job. I give him an A. Beatty, like I said early, but we'll see. Vientos is in AAA. Mauricio is in AAA. We'll really have to see everyone else. Like I said, you have a couple other young guys, Chet Williams, but low A, Florida, single A. I mean, what do you want me to discuss there? Talk to me in 3 years, maybe 2.5. So that's the thing. The Mets need to continue to bolster up this farm system. And, when Steve Cohen said he wants to be this version of the East Coast Dodgers, well, that includes having an elite farm system. And I see Ryan, you just commented. The Mets prospects need to start being effective. We've been seeing a lot of the Mets farm system. They have these great prospects, but they don't pan out. And I saw a poll. I don't know, Rob, if you saw it, but it said the Mets are have the least amount of prospects who make it to the MLB. And I don't know when that year started or what that's based off of, but I mean, it's believable. The Mets, the last 2 years, had a good draft, in my opinion. They drafted very well. They drafted big starting pitching this year. I want to say like 15 of the 23 picks were pitchers, and that's what they needed. They need pitching and outfielders. They have 1,000 shortstops and 1,000 catchers. That's great. You don't need that anymore. The Mets did. I think they had a good draft. I'm satisfied with their draft. So that's one thing I'll give Epler, if I give him any credit, is the draft the last 2 years have been good. So we'll see. And I guess kind of just my final thing to also mention, why does no one else kind of crap on any other teams? All I hear is, and from non-Met fans too, everyone just shits on the Mets. Well, the Padres have the third highest payroll in baseball. Have been spending since 2018, 2019 when they signed Machado. And besides Cupcake 2020, they have the same amount of playoff appearances as the Mets in one.
Yep.
Philadelphia
Phillies series, by the way.
Yeah, Philadelphia Phillies. That's Philadelphia Phillies. Spending longer than the Mets. They signed Harper going into 19, and I mean the first 3 years with them, weren't they like under 500? And also one playoff appearance, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. They didn't make it. Yeah, just one playoff appearance.
Yeah.
The Yankees. I mean, I watched that Yankees game today. That was a disgusting loss for the Yankees. I mean, you had C.J. Cron, grand slam, and then Alejandro, whatever his name is, hit his first home run of the season. Look at the Yankees. I mean, they're 6 games over, but they're in last place in their division. So, yeah, I mean, and I get it, the Mets, all Mets, but how about Lol Yankees? How about Lol Padres? Lol Phillies?
I tend to agree. Listen, and there's a couple of Yankee fans here that keep on talking, like Ryan, and there's a couple others, right, that are talking about the Yankees prospects, right? Now, the Mets, over the last 10 years.
Same thing with guys like Volpe. Oswaldo Cabrera.
I think Volpe's going to be good, right? I think the Yankees put him in a shit situation, and that's not his fault. But I think Volpe's going to be good.
Oh, I agree with you.
I don't think they're going to. He's like the way they were projecting him, like Derek Jeter. But I think he's going to be perfectly fine as a shortstop for the Yankees. Maybe even a second baseman, depending on what they do at the deadline with Peraza. But I just have to say something about the Mets farm system. Somebody put up a graphic, I think it was a reporter, about all the teams and all their draft picks over the last 10 years, and this is majority, Sandy Alderson as the Mets GM. The Mets drafted 286 players within a 10-year period from 2012 to 2022. I'm sorry. It was 2010 to 2020, right? The New York Mets, out of that 286, and these are established players that stayed on the Mets roster for a certain period of time or stayed on another roster for a certain period of time that were considered Mets draft picks at some point. Out of 286 in 10 years, 30 were prominent on a major league roster, either the Mets or another team at some point in their career. And when they play prominent, meaning they have at least a little bit of service time where they almost got out of their rookie deal, right? 30, that's 9%. The Mets are last in Major League Baseball in prospects. And for the Yankee fans that don't want to listen, right? Nimmo, McNeil, Alonso, DeGrom, Harvey, right? All those guys, Mats, d'Arnaud. Now, a lot of them are not with the Mets right now anymore. Some that I talked about. Besides Harvey, DeGrom probably could have been one of the better pitchers in baseball, maybe even a Hall of Famer if it wasn't for the injuries. Mats is still hanging on with the St. Louis Cardinals, right? We all know about the other guys that I just talked about as well, right? Name me the homegrown talent on the Yankees. And I'm not giving you Gleyber Torres because he wasn't a Yankee farmhand, right? Aaron Judge. That's it, right? Everybody else is bought. So let's not act like everybody else, like the Yankees are throwing up all these guys all over the place, right? Andujar, Sanchez, Bird, Severino, right? Everybody. Remember a couple of years ago, Severino better than DeGrom? Yeah, how fast did that change, right? I mean, come on, guys. Let's act. Now, the Yankees have had more draft picks that have come through the major leagues and with the Yankees or another team. But when was the last time the Yankees made a trade to bring a good player in and trade their prospects and they burned them? The Yankees overhype their prospects. They always have. And the reporters and the beat writers kiss their ass about their prospects. They bring out that they feed the Yankees prospects like the best things ever. And then the Yankees continue to trade their prospects. And there's one guy in the last 10 years that actually worked out on a team. And that is Duran for the Texas Rangers, who was traded for Joey Gallo. Other than that, find me a player that has been established on another team that the Yankees traded as a prospect to get better. I'm still waiting because it's not true. Right? Even, again, easy you brought up, when the Mets made that trade for Dickey with d'Arnaud and Syndergaard, right? Look, even Syndergaard had a second career after the Mets. Not great, but he's still in the major league. Barely, but he's still in the major leagues. d'Arnaud won a World Series with the Braves. He was a starting catcher for the Braves. Like, and that's what I'm trying to say. Like, yeah, the Mets don't have a lot of guys, and this goes more to the pitching side of the draft picks. That Mets pitching has been terribly bled besides the rotation for a while with the DeGrom, the Harveys, the Mats, and all those guys. They're pitching, right? And a lot of those Yankees draft picks that have made the majors, either with the Yankees or other teams, are bullpen arms. So that's a floored kind of graphic that reporter brought up. Well, Ken, that's what I'm saying, right? 20 years ago was the last time they actually had what the Mets actually are doing now with Alonso, McNeil, Nimmo, Beatty, Alvarez. They got 5 guys from their farm system.
I'll say this. I think the Mets, crazy I'm saying this today, but, regardless of the season, put the season aside, I think the Mets have a good future when it comes to future players and prospects and the future of this team offensively. I mean, I think this is a solid core going ahead. I mean, besides Lindor, he's not homegrown, but Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, Francisco Alvarez, Brett Beatty. And then maybe also in that mix, you have Vientos and Mauricio, and I don't know, maybe another prospect or two that comes down the line. I agree. I think player development is important. I mean, I think you look at a lot of other teams in baseball. Look at the Phillies. Look at the Padres. Name me one player on that team that's homegrown.
Yep.
And that's talented. That actually is talent. I'm waiting. Exactly. Padres. Who in the Padres is homegrown? Who in the Padres is homegrown?
What about the Phillies?
Machado bought, Soto bought, Tatis. No, he wasn't homegrown. He was traded for the White Sox.
Correct.
Sheffield or whatever his name was. Otherwise that whole rotation's been bought. Yeah. So, I would say the Mets are better compared to other teams when it comes to producing and growing talent. But, obviously you got to, continue to do it. And I think the Mets, like I said, I think Steve Cohen values the farm system. And we see that he doesn't want to touch the farm system a lot.
Yeah,
he wants to leave it. And as I think he should, I think there's a lot of decent guys in the mix. We've been hearing a lot about Mike Vassell, obviously Blake Tidwell. Those are two big guys pitching AA. Hopefully they could see AAA this year. Maybe be called up on the roster. Because like I said, pitching is going to be very important. Look at next year. You have Kodai Senga.
Yeah.
And that's probably, Carrasco is going to be done. What the future holds for McGill and Peterson, I don't know. I don't know. But really, in terms of confidence and trust, you have Kodai Senga, but you're going to have Scherzer another year older and Verlander another year older. So, you're going to really need to hopefully continue to develop Tidwell and Vassell. And then, obviously offensively, you have a couple other pieces in the Florida League. Jet Williams has been trending on Twitter a lot lately, which is good. And then, some of the older guys like Ronnie Mauricio. And of course, Vientos, who got a little crack at the majors this year and last year. But, I think the Mets just need to continue to do what they are doing. I think, and a couple people commented, just put this year aside, focus on next year, and just continue to experiment the rest of the year. See how Beatty does. See how Alvarez does. See how this player does in a certain situation. And just go all at it next year. And I hate to say that, but that's kind of the case. Unless in some miracle they make a comeback, which is pretty dumb. And honestly, explosive. I don't even know what the thing with Matt Allen is anymore.
Yeah, really.
I haven't heard his name in probably about a year and a half. So
he's out of the top 10 now.
He hasn't been relevant. He is. So I have no idea what the future.
That hurt the Mets a lot.
Yeah, and he was a very highly prospect, and we'll see. Obviously Tommy John. There's been plenty of minor leaguers who had it come back and play well. Jacob deGrom. But with that said, like I said, just. I guess, I don't know. I say you just focus on next year as much as I hate to say that. Experiment this year. Keyword experiment. See how Alvarez does in situations. Beatty, some of your pitchers. Grant Hartwig, he besides last night, he's been great. It's small sample size, but maybe he could be a nice bullpen arm for, the next couple of years. I don't know. But, just the Mets draft, I think, was successful. I think they had a good draft.
You know what? We everybody likes to kill Epler, but he had the number one draft class last year, and for a draft this year where they didn't have a number one first round pick because they got dropped to 10 picks because of how much they spent. He's ranked. I think it was DeComo, or was it? It was one of the guys one of the Mets guys writers that always either DeComo or Joe DeMaio, that they were ranked 6th as a top draft class this year. So Epler, all considering, obviously you don't know until they make it or don't make it, but 2 years in a row, Epler had really good drafts. And last year, it was kind of easier because he had 2 in the top 12 or 15. And this year, he didn't even have a first-round pick. So, that's a good sign for Billy Epler. As for draft picks, but again, we'll see how they work out. But man, I tell you, Kevin Parada, 2 home runs yesterday. In Brooklyn, Alex Ramirez has been basically
Parada's been another good one, yeah.
Yeah, Alex Ramirez has been the best defensive outfielder based on metrics in all of the minor league system throughout the minor leagues, and he's been hitting for power. He's getting stronger. He's developing like Mauricio did, who was a skinny twig, and now he's building up his muscle and getting older, which is obvious. So, look, the Cohen is doing the right thing. And, talking about Scherzer and Verlander at this point, we'll see what happens. I don't think they're going to get traded, honestly, unless the Mets know they can get at least a decent prospect or two back. for Scherzer if they pay that money and pay the contract and just give it to somebody to get some type. Other than that,
Parada's a catcher.
I don't want a lower level prospect and pay the money. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't help us either way over the next 1 or 2 years, or even probably the next 5. It's not worth it. So, when it comes to Steve Cohen developing a farm system that was destroyed by Sandy Alderson and the Wilpons that did not give a damn. And for everybody who wanted to give credit to Sandy Alderson single-handedly destroyed this Mets farm system. He didn't draft well at all. His best draft was with Brandon Nimmo. That's the only guy. Everybody else was Omar Minaya earlier.
Yeah. I think the only reason that Brody gets somewhat of an exception, say what you want about certain trades, but Brody drafted pretty decent. Alvarez in the international draft. You got Beatty. Was Vientos?
I think it was Alex Ramirez as well.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, yeah.
Yeah. I think that was like 2019 was a big draft. 18 and 19 was a big draft year.
Yeah. Ryan, I agree with you. They're not work, but that's the whole idea. Like I said, the money's already spent, as Cohen said, with Verlander and Scherzer. Next year, you have to put a rotation together. Nobody wants Peterson and McGill in this rotation. So if you trade Verlander and Scherzer, even if Mike Vasil makes it out of spring and makes the rotation, he's not going to be your ace. Kodai Senga, Vasil is probably, at best, could be a surprise number 2, but probably a 3 or a 4, right? I don't like anybody in this free agent market. People are talking about Blake Snell. Be careful with Blake Snell. He's in a contract year and having a great year. Look at his last 5 seasons. Injury prone and bad seasons, right? How the Mets rocked him in the playoffs in game 2. Do we forget that? Or do we just want to look at this year in a contract year? The same thing that goes for many other players in contract years. Be careful with that, right? Lucas Giolito. Everybody wants him, right? He's not great, guys. He's not your number 2. So you're going with Kodai Senga and a bag of misfits for next year, right? If you're trying to retool, you can't go out with a rotation with just Kodai Senga hanging on by dear life as the ace and everybody else a complete disaster. So you have to develop a rotation. If I'm not going to get if I'm not going to find a desperate team, because there's always a desperate team that will give you more for a pitcher that might not be great, but they think they can get something out of him. That's the only way I'm trading Verlander and Scherzer, because I'd rather have Verlander and Scherzer back next year and let them play out their contracts than trading them away and still paying their contracts, and you're giving me a single A player that might develop into something 4 years or 5 years down the line. That's not worth it. If you're not going to give me a top 15 prospect for these guys as I'm paying their contracts, just keep them in the rotation, because them pitching to a 3.6, 3.5, or a 4, I'd rather have them do it than somebody that I have to pay $15 million more to or $20 million more to, because Blake Snell's probably going to get a 4-year deal worth $20+ million along with Lucas Giolito. So you're not only going to have to pay Verlander and Scherzer's contract and trade them away, you also got to pay money to bring more guys in, which doesn't make sense. You're not solving the issue here, because you're not getting pitchers that are probably going to be much better. I don't trust Blake Snell as far as I can throw him. He's having a great year this year, but we all forget, right? Nobody wants to bring up that Blake Snell got rocked by the Mets last year in the playoffs and wasn't very good for the Padres last year. And the last 4 years of that, injury prone and wasn't very good.
And that's the thing. You look at a lot of free agent pitchers that are going on the market.
You have to look at
Stroman's been great, so I mean, it's kind of hard to say him now. I think he's a horrible clubhouse guy, but that aside, yeah, I mean, I do agree with Rob. I have scouted some of the free agent pitching, and this free agent market going into this offseason for 2023, 2024. I mean, if you really want to take somewhat of a dive at it, it's not like it's anyone like crazy that stands out. I think really the big guy is Shohei Ohtani.
Well, yeah.
And besides that,
that's an obvious one. But other than that, that's a crapshoot. We all think he's going to go to the Dodgers anyway.
Right.
Like everybody else, No,
I agree. And I mean, in terms of pitching, I mean, you have Scherzer is the player option, but in terms of just free agency, I mean, you have Ohtani, you have Clayton Kershaw, Hyun-Jin Ryu, Martin Perez, Lance Lynn, Liam Hendricks, Adam Wainwright. Who knows? Maybe the Mets should sign Adam Wainwright and Rich Hill, more veterans to the mix. But yeah, I mean, it's not like there's a lot. I mean, one interesting arm that I would be interested is potentially Eduardo Rodriguez.
That's one guy, yeah.
Sneaking in Detroit. He's coming back from injury. Good start.
That's going to be our number 2 if you trade for Verlander and Scherzer?
Well, no. I'm saying that's just continuing to build because let's say right now.
I agree. I'm saying if you do trade Verlander and Scherzer, these are the guys you have available.
Well, right.
Other than Ohtani, what are you going to do with that?
Right. And I think right now that's why you need to continue to build. And I don't think and I don't hope they trade away Verlander and Scherzer. So, I mean, if you look into a possibility of next year of Verlander, Scherzer, Senga, that's it. But you need a 4-5 and you probably need a 6 and 7, considering
worst case scenario. But again, that's the biggest problem. People just want to trade Scherzer and Verlander, but I guarantee you the same people that are talking about that, this is the first time they heard about the free agent starting pitching list, which isn't very good.
Right. How any interest in the Cardinals obviously are a team, and I may contradict what I'm about to say, and if anyone in the chat wants to reply to this, some miracle, what is Jordan Montgomery? Offer anything or no?
Well, I think he has 2 more years of control, so you're going to have to give up prospects to get him. I would think.
Don't think he's a free agent. I know. Oh, we keep forgetting about Quintana, but Quintana is a 1-year deal or 2-year deal?
It might be a player option.
And I mean, Quintana would be kind of stupid to opt out, considering he didn't.
Really like I said, Quintana's fine, but again, this is what we're.
Another year older. That's the issue.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. How many 4 or 5 starters are we going to have in this rotation if Scherzer and Verlander were gone? And again, it's not saying that Verlander and Scherzer are going to be our saviors here.
If you want
to make Senga as your ace and go with that and make Scherzer and Verlander your 2 or 3, that's fine. I think you could do a lot worse, to be honest with you, because nobody's going to be a lot better. Again, besides Blake Snell that's having a really good year, the guy I don't trust because he's injury prone and he hasn't pitched well like this in 6 years. And he's having it in a contract year. Always be careful with those type of pitchers. That is dangerous. Very, very, very dangerous. Sign Urias. He has a 4.6 ERA. He pitched well against the Mets. That's another 3 or 4th starter. That's not helping us. If you're going to get rid of Scherzer and Verlander, you need somebody that you can trust as a number 2. And again, I'm not saying I trust Verlander or Scherzer, but find me somebody who can pitch to at least their level and might show signs of old Scherzer or old Verlander, which you've seen a couple of times this year, which you won't get from guys that you're talking about, right? Urias, what is he going to do? Pitch to a 3.8 ERA? Well, it's not better than Verlander at this point. I mean, the Dodgers are winning because they're bludgeoning people. They're not pitching great. Their rotation's in shambles, right? I mean, they just talked about it on the staff. The pitching hasn't been really good for the Dodgers.
Bueller's hurt.
Yeah, exactly. And Urias, he's a decent pitcher. But again, if you needed a number 4, maybe even a number 3 at best, yeah, go get him. But you're looking at situations where, if you're not going to keep Verlander and Scherzer, you're going to find yourself in a bad predicament because now you're really counting on Mark Vasil to make this rotation next year, and there's no guarantee that he's even going to be a starter. We don't know that until he actually does it, and I don't think he's projected to be at best possibly a number 2, but most likely a number 3 and probably a number 4. So that's where the Mets are. And if you're going to retool for this team next year, how do you think they're going to build this team? Probably with money. There's $100 million coming off this payroll this year. And you're going to say, Rob, how is that possible? Well, look at it, right? Robinson Cano coming off the books. Canna, Escobar, Pham, Robinson, Raley. I'm sorry, if you trade Raley, probably, right? Ottavino's on the option, so you're not really losing there, right? There's guys like, let me find out. I'm trying to think of more. There was like about 7 or 8 players.
Canna?
Yeah, Canna. Vogelback gone. I know that's only like $2-3 million, but it adds up, right? I think Luis Guillorme might be up, which is only a couple $1 million, but I think it's around $95-96 million. So that's nearly $100 million coming off the payroll. Yeah, arbitration is going to add it up a little bit, but there's $100 million coming off the payroll. If you're not having no pitchers come up in this rotation, maybe Vasil, but that's about it. You're still going to have to spend money to build out your, everybody wants to trade all these bullpen arms. Well, who's going to be in your bullpen next year then? You got to sign people, don't you? So you're going to spend money anyway. That's why when people don't realize you can't half-ass a trade deadline and only, trade them because they're not good right now. Yet there's nothing to replace them with just average at best or worse than what you already have. I'll take Montgomery, but again, he has 2 years left on his contract. What prospects? The Cardinals are going to be looking for prospects. They're sellers at the deadline. They're not trading Montgomery for, Tommy Pham. You're probably going to have to give up, probably an Alex Ramirez, maybe a Vientos and another top 20 prospect. The Mets aren't going to do that for Montgomery, who's a number 4 starter at best. So there's the problem the Mets are falling into. The Mets are trying to build a farm system, but trying to win at the same time. If you're trying to build a farm system and the rotation and the bullpen has to be bought because you have no arms in your farm system that is worth putting in the bullpen on the rotation, you're in trouble. And that's where we are, Hayden. And that's the issue. And again, I always bring up the thing that everybody, that's all I see. Oh, trade Scherzer, Trevor Verlander. They're washed up. Well, again, great, they're washed up. But what other team doesn't think they're washed up? If you think they're washed up, don't you think the other teams think they're washed up? So you're going to pay their contracts, trade them for a bag of balls and a low A minor leaguer, and then you still have to spend money to add to your rotation to try to find probably a number 2 or maybe even a trade in the offseason to bring in a solid arm that could be a number 2 behind Kodai Senga. That's what you're going to do. So you're spending money no matter what. I'd rather just hold on to Verlander and Scherzer unless somebody is desperate that failed to get the starters they were looking for, and the only people that are left on the market are Scherzer and Verlander, and there's a desperate team that thinks that they can use them and they can help them and think they can fix them a little bit, and you get desperate like the Cubs did with Chapman, who wasn't very good for the Cubs. If you looked in the postseason against the Cubs, was bad. But they needed a closer. They were desperate. The Yankees had them over a barrel and says, you don't have no other closer you can go to. Chapman was the last one on the market. The Cubs had no choice but to give Gleyber Torres, who was the number 1 overall prospect in the Cubs system and ranked number 5 in all of baseball. Maybe you'll find a team in that aspect where they lost out on all the other starters that were available, and they run into the Mets and say, hey, listen, we'll give you a top 10 prospect for Scherzer. Just pay the contract. We'll give you a top 10 prospect for Verlander or Scherzer. You might find a desperate team. There's always one. And yeah, Yamid, yeah, Urias, yeah. He did that against the Mets. If you think the Mets are a bad team, then don't look at the game Urias just pitched against the Mets. Look at the other, 20 games this year he pitched to a 4.6 ERA. All right? Don't just look at the Mets that he pitched against. Hayden, I don't know. What would you already said it. So, like you said, you would keep Verlander and Scherzer because what's the point of trading them if you're not going to get anything of significance?
Well, yeah. And, the last thing you want to do is trade someone because you're desperate. And that is one of the worst things you could do is trade them because you're desperate. That's going to be an issue. I just don't really see any, regardless of what position the Mets are in, I just don't see really any point of trading away Verlander and Scherzer. I don't think any team would want to pick up that contract. Kind of like Rob said, if everyone thinks that they're washed, which kind of argue they are, what other team doesn't think that? I mean, unless they're, Tampa or Oakland, who are like pitching fanatics, but, they're obviously not going to go after them. They're set. Like I said, this deadline, it's literally going to be nothing. The Mets are not going to buy or they're not going to sell. It's literally going to be both of that. Yep. They are not going to buy. They are not going to sell. I think it could see like a goodbye to Canada, goodbye to Robertson, and hello to a couple prospects from this team. And that's it. A couple AA, AAA guys. I think that's literally going to be it. Everyone else is staying. I think Marte is going to stay as much as I hate it.
Yeah, unless somebody just says, can you pay a contract? I don't know. I honestly think Marte never recovered from that core surgery.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't think the team would be interested.
He was so good last year, and now he's so bad. It doesn't make sense. I really do believe that double core surgery he had, along with that wrist injury that he came back way too soon to come back right before the playoffs started. I think all had a combination of him having a bad season. I wouldn't be shocked if Marte comes back next year. And I'm not saying play as good as he did in 2022, but a lot better than he did this year. I think. Let's hope. So yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like I said. I mean, it is what it is. I think people just need to relax with the deadline. We're not trading away Pete or McNeil or someone that's having an unfortunate slump.
Epler is not doing his job. What I would do if I'm Billy Epler, I'll listen to every team for every player because you never know. You just never know. And I'm not saying trade Alonso. I put that in the poll only because I was just curious because there was a lot of talk on WFAN and on Mets Twitter. I think everybody saw it.
And this is one thing I have to say. The Mets are not trading Alonso. I know I just shit on him like an hour ago. The Mets are not trading him. Yeah, people need to relax. The Mets are not playing well. Cool, but you're not blowing up the whole team. Like this isn't a Frank Fleming, Frank the Tank rage of, abolish the whole team. No, we're not doing that. And that's the reason that no one is a GM in this chat, including myself. Yeah. I mean, like I said, the deadline, say it again, it's going to be the Baltimore Orioles deadline last year. Get rid of the rentals and veterans that don't serve a purpose for us, and that's all you're touching. That is literally all you are getting rid of. Everyone else, Nimmo, Alvarez, McNeil, Alonso, Senga, Beatty is going to stay.
Yeah. Like I said, if
that's another thing too. Regardless, let's say you were to trade. Let's say you were to trade a player like John Doe, made up name, right? Rob said you don't trade him at your low. That's the thing too. You never trade someone that is a streaky player who's having a bad year and at his lowest. That's the worst thing you could do.
Correct. Nobody. When he should have traded Jeff McNeil this offseason when he had the batting title. But nobody wanted to do that, right? Because
I don't think the Mets are going to trade McNeil. I really think McNeil's thing is I really do think it is the shift. I think McNeil is a guy who was just so adjusted to players shifting on him that he would be able to beat the shift or just know that he can go against it. And now he doesn't really have that luxury. And I think that's the reason. I get it, his power's down. I get it, McNeil's never been a hard exit velo or a hard hit guy. And this year we've seen a lot of launch angle swings, which I think he needs to stop that, just slap the ball. And I don't know. I just think, ironic it's coming for me, this team is overburdened with analytics. It really is. And you heard a lot of players came out. Guys like J.D. Davis came out and said, that they would constantly change up the front office and, each GM and each hitting coach had different play. And I think that's an issue. This team is just throwing all these analytics out, and I think less is better. People
Jeremy Bonds is 100% analytics, and I think that's the big problem this year.
And, they always say, the less the better. The quietest is always the smartest. And I think that's the case. I think let these guys go up there and know what they want. Listen, they, maybe know what type of pitcher he is, what he throws, sure. But, to have, I have an XBA of X, Y, and Z against this guy and a hard hit percentage of an X WOBA. No, that's too much. I can only imagine. And baseball players are mental, and I can only imagine what half these guys would be thinking because of that. So I think the analytics, I love analytics, but I think there's a time and a place when it comes to it. So that is the one thing. I think there's a proper use of analytics, but then I think there's a difference when you're just throwing it in their face and overburdening them. And if a player doesn't like it, that's an issue. So Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, and I agree. And look, I know we're well above an hour and everything like that, but we had a lot to discuss. There was a lot to talk about. I was telling everybody the other day that I'm doing a 24-hour trade deadline stream. I think somebody said it's 6 p.m. August 1st is the deadline. Is when the deadline for the trade deadline is over. August 1st, 6 p.m. Whatever time it is. If it's 6 p.m., I would actually go on the night before 6 p.m. and go all the way to the trade deadline whenever it ends. So if it's 4 p.m., I'll go until the next morning or the next night of the trade deadline at 4 p.m. or 6 p.m., whenever it is. So it'll be 24 hours. I'll have Hayden on. I'll have Chris on from New York Sports Pod. I have a new guy that's coming too. I haven't told you Hayden yet, but Amish Country Mets fan. I don't know if you've seen him, Nelson. He does a show with New York Sports Pod Chris. I think it's a post game after and interstate Mets or something like that. It's the show. They'll talk about it tomorrow. He's going to join us as a part of the group of the Mets Roundtable podcast. So. Because a lot of people are having schedule issues and it's hard for them to come every Monday. So I'm just trying to add more people except me, you, and Chris. I'd rather have, we already have our own show. So I want more people to come in, more opinions. It'll be more fun to have more opinions like that. And Chris is very good. Nelson, I've listened to him lately as well, along with Chris and on his own channel. He's very good. We all have our difference of opinions, and it's always good to have difference of opinions on on everybody's channel. I think it's important. The only way to grow is to not just do it by yourself. I think that's always important. Being a bigger channel, lower channel, I think you can all help each other in many different ways. So,
I agree.
Hayden, any final thoughts about the Mets and whatever else you need to talk about with your channel, and we'll be good to go.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, Rob and I kind of touched everything that I felt should have been touched in this stream was talked about. This is a team, we got the walk-off reaction, but, talk to me when they, win their next 4, win their next 5, and then continue to build off of it because, get a 6-game win streak. It's not going to mean anything. Like I said, that 6-game win streak you had, that's nothing now. You got to follow it up by a 4-game losing streak. You can't have that. So when it comes to it, like I said, no secret the Mets are not playing well. They're 43-50. I mean, when did the Mets have 50 wins last year? Like September? Yeah, I mean, I think the door is closing. And listen, I hate to come on here and sound all negative, but I mean, do you see any Met content creator being happy? Do you see any YouTuber, Instagrammer, Twitter, whatever? Do you see anyone, saying, "Oh, I can't wait for the playoffs"? No, there's not much to be happy about. Everyone's attitude's changed. I've noticed it, including myself, my attitude. It's frustrating, but at the end of the day, I think just right now, let the bad times ride out. Let this just be the worst case scenario. The rest of this year, you stay around the record you are. You win some, you lose some, you learn, you make mistakes, and let this just be an experiment year. And then you come into 2024, and then you have a couple new additions, including the guys you have already. And then you go all in from there. Guys like Alonso, Lindor, McNeil, Nimmo, Alvarez, Beatty, Senga, maybe Ohtani. But, it's very frustrating, but it's nothing new. And it really isn't. So we'll see. I mean, you can tell the fans are not happy at Citi Field. I mean, obviously I live in Florida. I don't go to many games, but I mean, I'm sure Rob could tell you and everyone else. And I hear it on my TV. I have MLB TV. I hear it. Fans are booing everyone. Everyone. I mean, guys like Vogelbach and, Marte get it the most, sure. But everyone's getting booed. Everyone's getting booed. You know what?
The field yesterday. Badly.
Yeah.
And when he struck out on the night, good. He should.
Yeah. Sorry. And I agree. And listen, I'm not, and I hate to come on and say boo the players, but you know what?
They deserve
it. Money. We pay their contract. We, let the fans show that they're upset, because right now the manager's not doing that job. The front office and managerial staff's not doing that job. So let us be the managers. Let us show.
Yep.
So we'll see how the rest of that goes. But I don't really have much ambition. I think this is probably the season. I hate to call it in July. You never know what could happen. But, you say, oh, Phillies last year. Yeah, that was in June. We're in almost August now. That's a completely different, yeah, and that is one kind of thing I will, touch on is, people bring up the points. Oh, look at the Phillies last year and the Braves. Yeah, but that was in June. That was in May. They were July 16th.
Time to get to that point.
Right. There's the door's closing.
Yeah.
Look at this NL division. You have the Braves that are like 1,000 games ahead. You have the Marlins who are like 7 games ahead. Look at the Marlins. Good for them. You have the Phillies. I know people aren't big on the Phillies, but hey, they're playing better than the Mets. And they're 7 games above 500.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think they'll get to the playoffs? We'll see. But they're a better team than the Mets. I think the only team that the Mets really could beat out now is allegedly the Nationals. And so far this season when they played each other, they haven't had that luck.
Well, the Mets' best record in any of the teams in the National League have been the Marlins, and that was early in April.
Yeah, that and the Diamondbacks. That's only 3. That's only 1 series. So we'll we'll see how it goes. Like I said, not the best start coming back from the second half. I mean, you ended the second half on a decent note. Obviously, the 6-game win streak. You came back, could have easily started good. You get 1 hit. You have a BS loss yesterday, and you had a good loss, and you had a good win today. But even today's game wasn't.
No, it was a win that just fell on our lap.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like, oh my God, the Mets won. It's not like they walked it off. Cool.
Scherzer pitched well, and that's it. That was basically it.
That's literally it. I mean, the highlights are
hitting it down the line to win the game.
Ground out RBI that Nimmo had, and Guillorme that bloop hit, which if Freeman was positioned, if no one was on base, probably would have been a ground out. But yeah, I mean, like I said, Dodger series is in the books. You went 3-3 against them this year, which I'll take it. I mean, last year you went 4-2 against them, but this isn't last year. Yeah. Coming home, you 3-game set against the White Sox.
Look, sweep them. Make it interesting. Like honestly, look. I don't think the Mets. I don't believe anymore the Mets are gonna make a run and make the playoffs. But you know what? Sweep the White Sox. You're probably better than the White Sox at this point, even though I can't wait to see Luis Robert, who's one of my favorite players, even though I know there's some issues in the dugout with him, with the clubhouse issues with him.
Yeah,
but you know what? Go out and beat the White Sox. How about that? Make it interesting. Give us a 4-game winning streak and, get Met fans talking a little bit. Because there will be some Met fans that will say, oh, look, because look, who's really playing well in front of us? Nobody. Look, the Padres are falling over themselves again. The Phillies just had a walk-off, but they're another team that, they'll win 5 games and then they'll lose 3 in a row. Like, they're a team that's going to be hovering around 5-6 games over 500. Probably not much better than that. And the Giants, the same thing. Like, the Mets only needed to be an average team to make the playoffs. That's why it's so frustrating. Not that there was a promise or like a expectation of winning 93, 94, 95 games. They only had to be average. That's why it's more frustrating, because the expectation was to make the playoffs. And as average as, again, I already said it, 87 wins is going to get the 3rd wild card, just like it did last year. Not much more than that. Maybe 88, 90 is not even going to get close to it. 87 is going to be the 3rd wild card. The Mets, if the Mets would have had, I said this last week, if the Mets would have had a 500 June, they would have been a game or 2 under 500 at this point, and they would have been right there in the wild card mix, where they would have probably been like 4 or 5 games out, but a lot better than what they are. It would have been a little bit more promising, because the June, look, for Mets fans, June is to have a 500 month the way the Mets play in June over the last 10 years. That's just plain and simple.
June.
Yeah, and it is. And you know what? Honestly, buddy, are you doing anything with your channel over the next few days or weeks or so?
Yeah, but yeah, no. So yeah, I mean that's really that with the Mets. Yeah, but that's really that with the Mets. In terms of my channel, obviously, I did a couple streams when I was away, but I'm back home, so I'll be back to the regular, stream between each series. So probably stream tomorrow, the Dodgers summary and White Sox preview.
Okay.
Of course, talking about everything else. So make sure you have your post notifications on for that. I'll leave a link to my channel in both chats and Rob's and mine, of course. So if you guys could subscribe to each of our own, that would be great. But yeah, otherwise, my channel, Mets Talk with Hayden. If you're watching on my channel, thanks for tuning in. If you're watching on Rob's, thanks for tuning in on both channels, of course.
Yep.
Like, comment, subscribe. My channel, like I said, is very basic. Live streams, videos in the off season, prospects, analytics, all that great stuff. I like to keep it real. I know now I sound very negative, and I mean, as I should be. I don't think anyone's positive. Otherwise, we'll just have to wait and see how it goes. Like I said, it's been tough, but hey, it's been tough. But you can help me out by subscribing to our channels. I think that is one way. I put a link in both in both chats. I think that's one way you could help Rob and I is if you subscribe. I think that's a good way. Let's get me to 800 and Rob to what 5,000, 4,000.
4,700 or something.
So 5,000 then. Yeah. So let's both of those goals. I know they're big difference, but hey.
Hey, listen. Listen. I was at your point at some point too. And by the way, today's my 2-year anniversary of the channel today.
Really?
I just found that out. I got a email from YouTube, so that's kind of cool.
Huh. That's cool. But yeah, that's really all I got. Yeah, LFGM. Let's go Mets.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. So make sure you subscribe to both channels. And guys, the hardest time for a content creator, especially when you're in a sport content creator, is when your team is bad, because you get less views, not much subscribers, because people are not interested in first watching the team, and second, caring about live streams that either I do or anybody else does during games or after games or before games, because people check out. And why not? It's summertime, right? When your team's not good, you find other things to do, and that's understandable. But the hardest thing to do is to get views and get subscribers when your team is bad. I started this channel in 2021 of this month, and the Mets were falling apart at the realm when the Braves starting to catch them in 2021, when everybody thought they were a good team. And the offseason is usually the best time to get views and subscribers, because there's optimism in free agency and trades. That's basically it. So once again, guys, thank you for keep on supporting both of our channels. Keep on coming back for more. We're trying to be positive as best as possible, but it's hard to. And we're not going to bullshit you guys or lie to you guys and be positive for something that this team don't deserve any positivity. They won today. Congratulations, 43-50, as Hayden said. They lost 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers. They got the White Sox started on Tuesday. I will be at that game on Tuesday. And, of course, Boston, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I will be in Boston. So make sure you check content that I'll be doing from Boston, live streams from there, and all that fun stuff. I will go live during the 5th inning with the 7 line. That I'll be there. We'll be in the right field by the pesky pole. I believe it's 1,700 of us, so we will be loud. We will be there. Met fans still show up. We still cheer on our team, even though we hate them. We still do. So with that said, everybody have a great night. Thank you for tuning in to another Shea Bridge Show. And remember, tomorrow, Mets Roundtable Podcast, we're going to have me, Hayden, Chris, and Nelson, a new member of the Roundtable Podcast. So make sure you tune in and make sure to subscribe to his channel. Amish Country Mets Fan. That is his channel. So check it out. Thank you for tuning in. Everybody have a great night. Hayden, appreciate it, buddy.
Let's go Mets.
As always, Mets fans, let's go Mets. We'll see you tomorrow night, guys. Have a great night.
Where there's a middleman, you'll find a Mets fan. Let's go. This is a Mets year for all your Mets here. Let's